Welcome back to my channel. Thank you all for your support. Let's continue with episode 2, titled My Aunt and Cousin, The Demons in My Life, episode 2. How it started. She often stayed late into the night, soaking up as much knowledge as she could. Though Bimbo was always tired from her long days, she felt a new sense of purpose and hope. She was learning again, and that made all the difference. Of course, Aunt Mayowa had no idea what Bimbo was doing. She was too busy with her own daughters, making sure Bimbe and Bumi had everything they needed for school. Aunt Mayowa did not care where Bimbo went early in the morning or after her chores, as long as she did her work and did not cause any trouble. But Bimbe and Bumi were suspicious. They noticed that Bimbo seemed different, more focused, more determined. They could not understand why Bimbo, who had nothing and no one, seemed to have found some kind of secret strength. One evening, as Bimbo returned home from Mrs. Eze's house, Bimbo stopped her in the hallway. "Where have you been, Bimbo?" Bimbo asked with a sneer. "You are always sneaking off somewhere. What are you hiding?" Bimbo's heart raced, but she tried to stay calm. "I am just going for a walk," she lied. "It helps me clear my mind." Bimbo narrowed her eyes. "You are lying. You are up to something. I am going to find out what it is." Bimbo quickly brushed past Bimbo and went to her room, her mind racing. She knew she had to be more careful. If Bimbo or Bumi found out about her secret lessons with Mrs. Eze, they might tell Aunt Mayowa and everything would be ruined. But Bimbo was determined not to let anything stop her. She was learning again, and she was not going to let anyone take that away from her. As the weeks went by, Bimbo became even more committed to her studies. Mrs. Eze was amazed by how quickly Bimbo learned and how dedicated she was. Despite the long hours at the market and the endless chores at home, Bimbo always gave her best effort in every lesson. One day, as Bimbo was studying, Mrs. Eze looked at her with a thoughtful expression. "Bimbo," she began, "you are doing so well, and I am very proud of you. But I have been thinking you deserve more than just secret lessons. You deserve to go back to school, to be with your other students, and to learn in a real classroom." Bimbo looked down, her heart heavy. "I wish I could, Mrs. Eze, but Aunt Mayowa won't allow it. She doesn't care about my education." Mrs. Eze nodded slowly. "I know, and that is why I want to help you find a way. I am going to tell some people in the community, people who care about children like you. We will see if we can find a way to get you back into school, where you belong." Bimbo felt a rush of hope, but also fear. She did not want to get her hopes up too high, only to be disappointed again. But deep down, she knew Mrs. Eze was right. She deserved a chance to go back to school, to have a future. And so, with a mix of hope and love, Bimbo waited to see what would happen next. Days passed, and Bimbo's life continued in its usual routine, selling goods in the market, doing chores, and sneaking off to Mrs. Eze's house for her secret lessons. But now, there was something new in her life: hope. Mrs. Eze had promised to help her find a way back to school, and Bimbo held onto that promise like a lifeline. One evening, After finishing her studies, Mrs. Eze asked Bimbo to stay a little longer. Bimbo, Mrs. Eze began, I have been talking to some people in the community, people who care about children and education. They were very moved by your story and they want to help you. Bimbo's eyes widening. Really? What can they do? Mrs. Eze smiled gently. We have come up with a plan. There is a scholarship program run by a charity group here in town. They offer support to children who can't afford to go to school. I have spoken to them about you and they are willing to help cover your school fees and supplies. Bimbo's heart swelled. A scholarship? That sounded like a miracle, but then doubt crept in. But what about Aunt Mayowa? She won't let me go to school, even if it is free. Mrs. Eze nodded. Her expression serious. That is why we have to approach this carefully. The scholarship people are willing to talk to your aunt. They will explain how important education is and how this opportunity can change your life. We will also have the community leaders support us. It is harder for her to say no when the whole town is watching. Bimbo bit her lip, feeling a mix of hope and fear. What if she still says no? What if she gets angry? Mrs. Eze reached out and took Bimbo's hand. Bimbo, I know you are scared, but you can't give up on this. You deserve a chance to go back to school. We will do everything we can to make this work, but you have to be strong and believe in yourself. Bimbo nodded, though her heart was still pounding. I will try, Mrs. Eze. I will try. The next morning, Bimbo went to the market as usual, but her mind was far away, thinking about the plan. As she sold goods to the customers, she could not help but imagine what it would be like to wear a school uniform again, to sit in a classroom and learn with other students. The thought filled her with excitement all at once. A few days later, the plan was put into action. Mrs. Eze, along with the head of the charity group and a respected elder from the community, went to visit Aunt Mayowa. They knocked on the door, and Aunt Mayowa, surprised to see such important people at her doorstep, quickly invited them in. Have you subscribed to our channel? Kindly show your support by subscribing to our channel. Enable the post notification bell so you don't miss any of our updates. Like and comment. Thank you. Good morning, Mrs. Mayowa. The elder greeted her. We have come to talk to you about something very important. Aunt Mayowa smiled politely, though Bimbo could see the suspicion in her eyes. What can I do for you? The elder did not waste any time. It is about Bimbo. We have heard about her situation and we want to help. There is a scholarship program that can cover all her school expenses. All we need is your permission to enroll her back in school. Aunt Mayowa's smile faltered. Oh, I see. But you know, Bimbo is very useful at home. She helps with the chores, and she is doing so well selling in the market. I am not sure school is the best place for her right now. The charity leader spoke up next. Mrs. Mayowa, Bimbo is a bright girl with so much potential. Education is the key to her future. With this scholarship, she can become something great, something that will make her and all of us proud. Aunt Mayowa hesitated, glancing at Bimbo, who was standing quietly in the corner, her heart pounding in her chest. But who will help me at home? Who will sell in the market? The elders responded calmly. We understand your concerns, Mrs. Mayowa, but this is about Bimbo's future. We can arrange for someone to help you with the chores and market work while Bimbo is at school. The community will support you. and Mayowa looked conflicted. She was used to having Bimbo do all the hard work, and the thought of losing that made her uneasy. But at the same time, she did not want to argue with the community leaders or seem like she did not care about Bimbo's future. Finally, after what felt like an eternity to Bimbo, and Mayowa sighed. Well, if it is what the community wants, and if it is good for Bimbo, then I suppose I have no choice but to agree. Bimbo's heart leaped with joy, but she kept her emotions in check, not wanting to show too much in front of her aunts. Thank you, Mrs. Mayowa, the charity leader said, smiling warmly. You are doing the right thing. Bimbo will make you proud. The meeting ended and the visitors left. As soon as they were gone, Aunt Mayowa turned to Bimbo, her face stern. Don't think this means you are off the hook. Bimbo, you will still do your chores and sell in the market after school. I don't want to hear any complaints. Yes, Aunt Mayowa, Bimbo replied quietly, though inside she was bursting with happiness. She did not care how much work she had to do. She was going back to school. The next week, Bimbo was enrolled in the local secondary school. She could not believe it when she put on her new school uniform, a blue and white outfit that felt like a symbol of a fresh start. She walked to school that first day with her head held high, feeling a mixture of nerves and excitement. At school, Bimbo was welcomed by the teachers and other students. Some of them knew her story and treated her with kindness and respect. Others were curious about the girl who had returned to school after being absent for so long. But Bimbo did not mind the attention. She was just happy to be there, sitting in a classroom, learning again. Despite having to wake up early to do chores, sell in the market after school, and study late into the night, Bimbo was determined to make the most of this opportunity. She paid attention in class, did her homework diligently, and even joined a few clubs to make new friends and learn more skills. However, not everyone was happy with Bimbo's return to school. Bimbe and Bumi, who had always looked down on Bimbo, now saw her as a threat. They did not like that Bimbo was getting attention from the teachers or that she was doing well in her studies. They began to plot ways to make Bimbo's life at home even harder. But Bimbo did not let their jealousy get to her. She focused on her studies and kept her secret lessons with Mrs. Eze, who continued to tutor her in the evenings. With every passing day, Bimbo grew stronger, smarter, and more confident. She knew that this was just the beginning of her journey, and she was ready to face whatever challenges came her way. As Bimbo lay in bed that night, exhausted but happy, she thought about her parents. She missed them terribly and wished they could see her now, wearing her school uniform, learning and growing every day. But Bimbo knew that they would be proud of her for fighting for her education and for believing in herself. And as she drifted off to sleep, Bimbo made a promise to herself. She would keep going, no matter what. She would make her parents proud, and she would prove to everyone, especially Aunt Mayowa, that she was worth more than just a housemaid or a market girl. Bimbo's journey was far from over, but she was ready for whatever lay ahead. As Bimbo continued to work hard in school and at home, she never lost hope. The challenges she faced only made her stronger, and she was determined to rise above her circumstances. Despite the cruelty of her aunt and cousins, Bimbo's kindness and resilience shone through. Months passed, and Bimbo's success in school became well known. She was among the top students in her class, and her teachers often praised her for her dedication and hard work. Bimbo's quiet strength and determination began to draw admiration from her peers, and she slowly became a role model for other students. But life at home remained difficult. Mrs. Mayowa and her daughters, Bimbe and Bumi, continued to mistreat Bimbo. They were jealous of her success and did everything they could to make her life miserable. One day, as Bimbo was returning from school, she noticed a strange tension in the house. Mrs. Mayowa seemed unusually quiet, and Bimbe and Bumi were nowhere to be seen. Bimbo felt uneasy, but she decided to go about her usual chores, trying to keep to herself. That evening, as she was finishing her homework, she heard a knock on the door. To her surprise, when she opened it, she saw her parents standing there, smiling warmly. Bimbo's heart leaped with joy, and she ran into their arms, tears of happiness streaming down her face. "Mom, Dad," Bimbo cried, holding them tightly. "I missed you so much." "We missed you too, my dear." Her mother, Mrs. Akombi, said softly, brushing Bimbo's hair from her face. "We are so proud of you." As they entered the house, Bimbo noticed the shocked expression on Mrs. Mayowa's face. She looked as if she had seen a ghost. Bimbe and Bumi, who had just returned from school, also seemed stunned to see their aunt and uncle. Mr. Akombi did not waste any time. He sat down with his sister, Mrs. Mayowa, and spoke firmly. "Mayowa, we trusted you to take care of our daughter while we were away," he began. "We sent you money every month to ensure that Bimbo's needs were met and that she continued her education. But we have just learned that you did not use that money for Bimbo. Instead, you spent it on your own children while forcing Bimbo to work in the market." Mrs. Mayowa's face turned pale, and she stammered, trying to find an excuse. I was just trying to manage things." "Manage things?" Mrs. Akombi interrupted, her voice filled with disappointment. "You had no right to treat Bimbo this way. She is your niece, and we expected you to take care of her." Bimbo watched as her aunt struggled to come up with an explanation, but there was nothing she could say to defend her actions. The truth was out. Bimbe and Bumi stood by the door, silent and ashamed. They had always followed their mother's lead, but now they realized the gravity of their actions. They had been cruel to their cousin, who had done nothing but try to fit in and succeed despite the hardships. "We are taking Bimbo back with us," Mr. Akombi said finally. "She is leaving this place, and we will make sure she gets the education and care she deserves." Mrs. Mayowa's eyes filled with regret as she realized what she had done. The money she had used for her own children's education should have been spent on Bimbo. Now, her greed and mistreatment had cost her the trust and respect of her brother and his family. Before they left, Mrs. Akombi took Bimbo's hand and said, "We are sorry for everything you have been through, but you have made us so proud. You have shown incredible strength and courage, and now it is time for you to come home." As they prepared to leave, Bimbo looked at her aunts and cousins one last time. There was no anger in her heart, only a sense of relief that her ordeal was finally over. She knew that she was moving on to a better life, one where she would be surrounded by love and support. Bimbo's parents took her to the airport, where they boarded a flight back to the country where they had been living. As the plane soared into the sky, Bimbo felt a sense of peace and hope. She knew that her future was bright, and she was ready to embrace it. Meanwhile, back in Nigeria, Mrs. Mayowa and her daughters were left to face the consequences of their actions. Without the money from Bimbo's parents, they struggled to make ends meet. Bimbo and Bumi, who had once been so confident in their superiority over Bimbo, now regretted the way they had treated her. They realized too late that they had lost not only their cousin, but also the respect of their family. Moral of the story: treat others with kindness and respect, for you never know how your actions will come back to you. Greed and cruelty will only bring regret and suffering in the end. But those who remain strong, kind, and true to themselves, even in the face of adversity, will rise above and find happiness and success.
Have you subscribed to our channel? Kindly show your support by subscribing to our channel. Enable the post notification bell so you don't miss any of our updates. Like and comment. Thank you.